The man at the glass door. It was just past 2 a.m. when the silence started to feel heavier than usual. I'd worked night shifts at this 24-hour convenience store for nearly a year, and the routine had become second nature, restocking the drinks, wiping down the counter, zoning out to whatever horror flick I could find online. The nights usually blended into each other, filled with stale coffee, humming refrigerators, and the occasional drunk stumbling in for cigarettes. But that night it didn't feel routine. The air was still, too still. Outside, the streets were drenched in fog, casting a quiet glow under the yellow-orange streetlights. The kind of fog that seemed to mute the world around it. I remember how the flickering neon open sign buzzed above the door, and the light from the cooler in the back cast an eerie glow against the linoleum floor. Everything felt slightly off. Then came the sound tap. Tap. At first, I thought I imagined it. I paused the movie playing on my phone, an old black and white slasher, and sat up straight behind the register. Another few seconds passed. Tap. This time it was clearer, slow, measured, intentional. I looked up and saw him. A man stood outside the glass door, backlit by the hazy glow of the street lamp behind him. He wasn't moving. Just standing there with his hands at his sides. His hoodie was light gray, old and wrinkled, pulled tight over his head so his face was completely in shadow. He didn't look drunk. Didn't look like he wanted to come in. He just stood there. Watching, I felt a chill move through my body. Goosebumps crawled up my arms. I slowly rose from the stool, walked to the front of the store, and peered at him from behind the counter. Tap. His hand moved with eerie precision. 3 soft taps with the knuckle of his index finger. Then back to silence. His posture was stiff. Completely still except for the tapping. No shifting, no blinking. Just waiting. I raised a hand and pointed to the neon sign. I even mouthed, "We're open." No reaction, no confusion. No sign that he wanted to buy anything, nothing. Then slowly, he raised his hand and pointed, not at the store. At me. I froze. His finger was bone thin, pale, and the movement, it was like watching an old VHS tape, just slightly wrong. Like it skipped frames. I took a step back, heart starting to pound in my chest. Something primal kicked in, something ancient. That instinctive fear that tells you when something is not human. Not right. Above me, the security monitor buzzed and flickered. I glanced up. One of the feeds showed the alley behind the store. It glitched for a split second, then came back. But during that split second, I saw them 2 figures standing in the shadows near the dumpster, not moving. Just barely visible. Their faces turned toward the camera. I didn't wait. I ran to the front door, twisted the deadbolt, and locked it. The man didn't flinch. He just lowered his hand and smiled. A wide, toothless grin that spread way too far across his pale face. His lips cracked as they curled upward, like his face had forgotten how to smile and was trying to remember. I felt my stomach drop. He turned slowly and began walking calmly around the side of the building. I backed away, shaking. My hand fumbled under the counter for the aluminum bat we kept for emergencies. I clutched it tight and stepped behind the register, my eyes darting to the camera feeds. One showed the side of the building, nothing there. Another showed the back alley again, empty. But then the feed glitched once more, and I saw something inside the store, a shadow, moving slowly down aisle 2. I whipped around. Nothing. I stepped out from behind the counter and walked slowly toward aisle 2, gripping the bat so tight my knuckles turned white. My shoes squeaked softly against the floor. The fluorescent lights above buzzed louder than usual. I turned the corner, empty. I let out a shaky breath. Maybe I was seeing things. Maybe I was just worked up. Then the lights above aisle 4 snapped off. All at once. The aisle was swallowed in darkness. I backed away. Slowly. Eyes locked on the black corridor that had just formed. Tap. Tap. I spun around. The front door. The man was back. His face was pressed against the glass this time. His skin pale and stretched tight, like wax. Eyes wide, too wide, no whites, just black sunken voids. And his smile, it was still there, unmoving, too wide for his face. He didn't tap this time. He just stared. Then his head began to tilt, slowly, until it was completely sideways. The camera monitor buzzed again. I looked up and nearly dropped the bat. There were 4 figures in the store now. One standing at the back, another in aisle 5, one behind the counter, and one right in front of the cooler, barely 10 feet from me. Asterisk, but when I looked around, nothing. The store looked empty. I was trapped. I called 911. My voice shook as I told the operator someone was trying to break in, and I thought people might be in the store. She kept me on the line and said an officer was already nearby. But then all the lights went out. Total darkness. I heard footsteps. Soft, deliberate, coming from behind the counter. I pressed my back against the nearest wall, breathing hard, still holding the bat. Something moved past me. I felt it. The air shifted. It was like walking through a cold fog, but nothing touched me. I swung the bat wildly, hitting nothing. The lights came back on. Blindingly bright. The store was empty again, but the front door, it was wide open, and the man was gone. Police arrived 3 minutes later. They checked the store, the cameras, everything. The footage? Corrupted, glitched beyond recognition. They blamed a power surge. Said the guy was probably some whack job trying to scare me. I quit that job the next day. But sometimes, late at night, when I pass by that store, I still see a shape standing near the glass door. Just standing and smiling. The basement lights. It was the kind of quiet that made you uneasy. Not peaceful, too quiet. The kind of silence that reminded you something could be lurking just out of sight. It was 3:17 a.m., and I was on shift at the regional hospital I worked. Security at. Not a big trauma center, just a mid-sized facility in upstate New York. Most of the hospital shut down at night, save for the emergency department and a few floors that remained dimly lit. I was in the security booth near the back of the hospital, watching a grid of dim, grainy camera feeds. Next to me sat Marcus, a former Marine and my usual night shift partner. We got along well enough. Shared the same distaste for slow nights and hospital coffee. Motion alert basement corridor, Marcus said, his voice low, almost hesitant. I turned my eyes to the screen. Camera 12, the one pointing toward the basement hallway leading to the morgue, flickered. It showed a narrow corridor lined with old tile and overhead lights that barely worked. One of those lights was on now, flickering like it had a short. The hallway appeared empty. But then movement. A figure darted across the frame, too fast, too jerky. Like a skipped frame on a broken DVD. It vanished behind a wall before we could see clearly. Marcus leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. That's not a patient. We stared at the feed. Seconds passed. Then she reappeared. A woman, wearing a hospital gown. Her posture was slouched, head tilted slightly to the side. Her long black hair clung to her face and shoulders like it was soaked. Her bare feet were blackened, like she'd been walking through ash or worse. She moved closer to the camera again with that unnatural, jittery motion. Then she stopped, slowly raised her head, and looked straight into the camera. Her face was gaunt, eyes wide and unblinking. Skin grayish. Lips slightly parted like she wanted to speak but couldn't. Then the screen went black. Nope, I muttered. Marcus stood up, sighing. We have to check it. I stared at him. You serious? That wasn't normal. You know the drill. We report it, we go down, we sweep, we write it up. I hated that he was right. We grabbed our flashlights, radios, and headed to the elevator. As we descended, I could feel my stomach tightening. The basement was always cold and musty, but this felt different. Wrong. The elevator dinged open. Cold air rushed in like we'd opened the freezer. The hallway ahead was dark, except for one flickering light at the far end, just like on the feed. We stepped out. The air felt thick, like it was hard to breathe. We announced ourselves loudly. "Security, anyone down here?" No response. We moved cautiously, flashlights scanning every corner. The shadows shifted with every step. Then we heard it. Drip. Drip, drip. The sound was faint but steady, like water hitting tile. We followed it. I swept my light to the left and stopped. There was a dark, wet handprint smeared along the wall. It trailed down the hallway, disappearing into one of the old exam rooms. The door was cracked open. We exchanged a glance. Marcus nodded. We pushed it open together. The room was empty. But the smell, mildew, rot, and something metallic hit me like a wave. There were rusted surgical trays, a broken gurney, and old bloodstains on the wall. My light passed over the corner. And that's when I saw it. Another handprint. Fresh. Still glistening. Then bang. A light in the hallway went out. Then another dot, and another dot. Bang. 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 We were plunged into darkness. Only our flashlights still cutting through the pitch. Then silencea. Full 10 seconds passed. Then we heard it. A voice. Wet, gurgling, like it came from lungs filled with water. "You left me down here." Marcus and I didn't wait. We bolted back up the hallway, through the cold, to the elevator. We smashed the button, and the doors finally opened. The entire way up, neither of us spoke. My hands were shaking. When we got back to the security booth, I went straight to the monitor. Camera 12 clear. No motion, no woman, no lights flickering. Nothing. We rewound the footage. Nothing. No alerts, no figure. No faces, like it never happened. Marcus sank into the chair. We imagined it, but I knew we didn't. When I got home later that morning, exhausted, I dropped my jacket to the floor. My wife pointed at my back and asked, "What happened to you?" I went to the mirror. A handprint, dark and smudged, right between my shoulder blades, still wet. The third floor. There's something about cleaning offices at night that always felt strange to me, even before this happened. Empty cubicles, buzzing lights, the sense that you're not supposed to be there after hours. But that night, that building, I knew something was wrong the second I stepped onto the third floor. My aunt ran a small cleaning service, and I'd help out sometimes to make extra cash. We handled buildings after hours, mostly banks, dentists, corporate offices. Easy work, usually quiet. That Friday night was no different, at first. We arrived around 9:30 p.m., parked in the back lot, and started with the first 2 floors of an old insurance office on the edge of town. The kind of place that looked like no one cared about it anymore. Yellowing wallpaper, dead plants, dusty cubicles. By midnight, we were nearly done. That's when my aunt turned to me and said, "Can you finish the third floor? I'll handle the bathrooms and mop downstairs." I hesitated. The third floor always creeped me out. I'd only been up there once before, and even then, I didn't stay long. But I didn't want to seem like a coward. "Sure," I said, grabbing the vacuum and a trash bag. The elevator groaned as I stepped inside. It was one of those old stainless steel ones, where the walls feel too close and the lights flicker slightly. The doors closed, and I pressed the button for the third floor. Ding. The doors slid open with a reluctant sigh. Dead silence. I stepped out. The third floor was still, staler than I remembered. The air felt heavy, like it hadn't moved in weeks. The hallway was dimly lit, and the overhead lights flickered in rhythmic patterns. Cubicles stood like tombstones. Some still had outdated calendars pinned up, untouched since maybe 2017. I started vacuuming near the main cubicle cluster, just to get it over with. The hum of the vacuum cleaner was the only thing breaking the silence. I moved slowly through the aisles of empty desks, occasionally tossing out old candy wrappers or sticky notes. Then I heard it. Ring. Ring. I stopped the vacuum. A phone was ringing. Not a cell phone, one of those old landline desk phones. The sound echoed through the empty floor. I followed the sound, heart pounding a little harder with each step. It was coming from the corner office, the one with the glass walls and a broken nameplate on the door. The door was half open. No lights on inside. Just that ringing. I pushed the door open further. Inside was a large desk covered in dust, an old rolling chair, and a blinking red light on the phone. Ring. Ring. I picked it up. No dial tone. Just static. Then, faintly, almost like a breath. You shouldn't be here. I dropped the phone. Literally dropped it onto the desk. It clattered loudly. I backed out of the office. My hands were shaking. That's when I saw them. Someone was standing at the end of the hallway. They were dressed in all black. I couldn't see a face. Their back was turned, completely motionless, like a mannequin. "Hey, this floor's closed." I called. No reaction. I took a hesitant step forward. They blinked out, gone, like someone cut them out of the frame. The hallway was empty. I ran, sprinted past the cubicles, dropped the vacuum, didn't even look back. I took the stairs down 2 at a time, nearly tripping on the way. My aunt was mopping near the front desk when I reached the lobby, out of breath. Pale. "What happened?" she asked. I told her. Every word. She didn't look surprised. "Just tired." She sighed. "They always come around this time. Just ignore them." "Who?" I asked. "What the hell was that?" She didn't answer. I quit the next morning. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if anyone still goes up there. And if someone picks up when the phone rings.